Hey, everybody, and welcome back to a special episode of the Navs Effect podcast with me, your host, Naveen Ganglani. So, you're going to have to bear with me for this episode. I probably look more haggard than I usually do, and I probably won't have the energy that I usually do for these episodes, especially post game episodes, because technically I'm supposed to be on vacation, part working. I'm also running on like 3.5 hours of sleep here because I had an early flight today, and I'm currently in, I guess, it's a living room of the hotel room that we're staying at. And I actually wondered if I was going to do a podcast episode or not because, like I said, technically supposed to be on vacation mode, but it was a pretty interesting day for basketball, particularly college basketball, which, if you're listening to this episode right now, you're probably aware we do a lot of that on this podcast. And it was a pair of big games that took place on Sunday. We're recording this late Sunday night, July 13th. It's coming out on a Monday. So, first, NU with a big bounce back victory coming from trailing by as much as 14 to beat UST to make the finals of the Filoil tournament. And then the UP Fighting Maroons bouncing back from a 14-point deficit as well, if I'm not mistaken, against DLSU for the second straight year, eliminating DLSU in Filoil with a major second half comeback that started in the third quarter and resulted in them closing out the game in the final minutes of the fourth period. Now, before we proceed, I should just note that the Filoil Finals, which was originally scheduled to take place on Wednesday, July 16, is now being pushed to July 27. Yes, there are going to be 14 days in between now and when the finals take place. The reason why is because NU has a scheduled off-season trip to China, interestingly enough. They're scheduled to leave, I believe, on Tuesday. So you're gonna be there for about a week, and when they get back, maybe a day or two of rest, and then they face UP. So both teams will be well rested, I should say, on the finals matchup, which will also that day will also include a 3-point shootout. So good job for the Phil Oil tournament, being adventurous and trying out new things. I'm excited to see how that takes place. So how did we get here? How did we get to a matchup between UP, the winner of the last two Phil Oil tournaments, and NU, the team that won before UP in Phil Oil? We have the last two champions of Phil Oil. Well, let's start with the main game. We said that this contest between La Salle and UP in the semis would be like a finals atmosphere. And even if I was just watching it on YouTube, I'm sure that those who are also watching it online will agree that the crowd was into it, the energy was electric, the back and forth between both teams, pretty much what you'd expect from big time rivals in college basketball right now. And I think it's fair to say that these are the two biggest rivals, at least right now, on the basketball court for UAP supremacy, UAP basketball supremacy. And before some sensitive and nostalgic people go at the comments and be like, "Oh, you're forgetting La Salle Ateneo." The Battle of Katipunan. No, I'm not forgetting. I know the history of those rivalries as well. I'm just saying on the court right now, in terms of the best teams and the best competition on the court, I think La Salle and UP are the best teams in the UAP. I said in the last episode, I give both UST and Ateneo a chance to kind of break through there this season. I feel a little less confident about UST now, but I'm not ruling them out completely. I still think they can get there, especially once we see what they can do with Colin Sakawe on the lineup. And we haven't really seen Ateneo since Asia Basket, where they made the finals and performed well against DLSU. And also, we talked about how they performed well against a strong group team that's currently in Taiwan right now in two tune-up games. Nico Rocha came on the podcast in the last episode to go into detail about that. So if you're an Ateneo fan and you want to be updated with what's going on with your Blue Eagles, check out the last episode that we did. So I took down some notes like I usually do for the games I want to talk about on the podcast. And I'm going to get into it. But first, let's take a look at some of the final stats that I believe are worth mentioning as we discuss this game. So for DLSU, the big glaring issue, I'm going to get right into it, the free throws right away. 23 out of 43 from the free throw line, it's 53%. It's not good. In the first half, they shot 50% from the field. Overall for the game, they finished at 37%. So the shooting really dipped in the last two quarters. But you can make a case that had DLSU made at least maybe even 5 or 6 more free throws than they did, they probably give themselves a better shot at winning late in the fourth period. But they did not. That's one of the issues in college basketball. If you cannot make your free throws, you put yourself in a position to lose because it's the little things that determine who wins games between elite teams. LaSalle won the rebounding battle 57-47. However, they gave up the ball 15 times compared to UP's 11. UP shot 36% from the field. 3-point shooting 7 out of 28 for UP, 5 out of 22 for DLSU. None bigger than the two final 3-pointers hit by Ray Ramagat. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Other stats here that we should mention. Okay, let's look at some of the individual performances. For UP, Remo 3 out of 13 from the field. He was 1 out of 11 before those final 2 3-point daggers that won them the game. And this was not the first time that Ray had struggled against DLSU. Remember when these two teams faced each other in the elimination round? It wasn't exactly a great performance for Remagat. And after the trip to Serbia that UP had, Ray actually had a stomach virus that required him to stay in the hospital. So he recently I don't even think he's 100% healed yet or 100% recovered. Stomach viruses are tricky. You can never put a proper time frame on when you come back from that. But for him to go through that ordeal of being sick, struggling mightily from the field, he even had issues like dealing with Michael Phillips coming out of those pick and roll defensive coverages and trapping, hedging, showing hard. And at the same time, too, before those 2 3-pointers that he hit, let's not forget, Remogat lost the ball in an ISO against Mason Amos, from all people. And Mason has improved a lot as a defensive player and as an overall player. So I don't want, to sound like I'm putting his defensive prowess down, but he's not a shutdown defensive player. But Mason was able to swipe the ball and he made a move. And I thought he was going to make a wide open layup. He missed it. And then right away after that play, Remogat hits 2 big 3-pointers. So that bounce back ability, that ability to progress from one play to the next, very impressive. So you have to give Ray credit for that. I'm not used to using this kind of mic, so bear with me again, guys. Anyway, back to it. Abanyana, 12 points, 3 of 9 shooting. Gianni Stevens continues to be really impressive. 12 points, 8 rebounds, 5 of 6 from the field, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, plus 22 in 21 minutes and 44 seconds. That's key. Even Ramagat was a plus 22. Stevens has been doing this now for a few games consistently. It's not just random occurrences. He's legitimately establishing himself as, with Naruka, probably the 2 best big men of this UP Fighting Maroons team. Alarcon struggled from the field, 2 out of 10, 9 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Let's see who else here. Torres had 9 points, 4 of 7 shooting from the field. Naruka only 6 points, but 16 rebounds. Did a good job cleaning up the glass. I know it seems like LaSalle got a lot of offensive rebounds. They had 20, actually, but they could have probably had more had Naruka not cleaned up the glass in some occasions. So you have to give him credit for that as well. Torres, just a quick point on him. Him being able to create space and create shooting opportunities and scoring opportunities for himself. One, that's not out of nowhere. He's been working a lot with True Focus this off season, and you can start to see those workouts and those reps he's putting in show itself on the court. He was a decent player, good defender, could knock down, catch and shoot 3-pointers the last few seasons, but now he's creating shots off the dribble. And True Focus, that's the developmental program that worked with the likes of Kiefer and Zabando, SJ Belangel. So their track record speaks for itself. I'm not saying Raylan is going to be as good as those guys, but the fact that he's working with them, I think bodes well for UP. Jacob Ayla, just 12 minutes, 2 points. Miguel Iniguez didn't play. Andres, 3 minutes. Sean Alter, 9 minutes, 52 seconds, 6 points. I was also impressed with some of what he was doing. He had that impressive. I think he had an end one against Mike Phillips or scored a layup against him with the left hand, and you have to give him props for that. Brianna, 6 points. DLSU Cortez had 6 points, but 4 of 12 from the field, 6 rebounds, -13. Not exactly a great Jacob game, to be honest. He hit some shots, but it didn't feel like he had control of the pace and control of the energy of the game like he did the last time LaSalle faced UP. Abadam, not a great game. He had some good hustle plays, but 0 of 6 from the field. Also missed a few big swing 3-pointers. Makalalag 3 points. Amos had 11 points, 6 rebounds, hit three-pointers in the first quarter alone. I think it was three or two. I think it was three. And it seemed like he was on pace for a big game. And he had two chances to possibly close out the game for LaSalle in the late stretches of the fourth period. He had a 3-pointer from the corner, good closeout. I think it was Naruka, bothered the shot a bit. And then that layup off the Remogat steal that he missed, which I thought could have gone a long way in helping LaSalle secure this win. Marasigan was probably next to Phillips and Baclan, the most impressive Green Archer. 11 points, 3 of 3 from the field, 5 rebounds, +8. He's like a freight train sometimes. When he's coming at you, attacking, he attacks so hard, so aggressive, so strong that the defenders sometimes just send him to the free throw line because he's so big and coming so quickly that it's almost automatic that when they try to defend him, they just get a part of his body and he goes to the free throw line. However, 5 of 9 from the free throw line, and the whole LaSalle team struggled. Baklaan, 27 minutes, 5 of 8 from the free throw line, 14 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 4 turnovers. He did a good job setting up teammates, that's for sure. However, some of the shot making that we've seen in the last few games wasn't quite there. Mike Phillips, 23 minutes, 12 points, 4 of 12 from the field. Another off shooting day from the field for Mike. That's the second straight game. 14 rebounds, 4 out of 11 from the free throw line. So that's something that continues to be an Achilles heel for Mike Phillips because we've seen the improvement in the post. We've seen the improvement with the footwork. We've seen the drop steps, the hook shots. The jump shot isn't quite there yet, but you don't really expect Mike to be a knockdown shooter, right? That's not his game. But the free throws, until he starts hitting those consistently, you're going to see guys like, do like what Alarcon did, which is, get into his mind while he's shooting in the free throw line, try to talk to him a bit. And if teams know that he's not going to hit consistently from the charity stripe, they're going to foul him to avoid the easy shots, the easy dunks. And those could be potential momentum killers for LaSalle's offense. Anyone else? Let's see. LeBron Diep did not play. Mikey Cortez did not play. No minutes for Melencio. No minutes for Kines as well. Pablo, 6 points in 21 and a half minutes. So overall, not a great day for the Green Archers. It seemed like they were on pace for a great day early in the game. And early in the game, one of the notes I wrote down was how it seemed like DLSU was the team that had a better idea of their identity and what the roles of the players were supposed to be. It felt like, compared to UP at least, when the DLSU guys were entering the court early on, each guy was going in there knowing what he had to contribute, what he had to do to help the overall team. It felt like Topex, and it still feels this way. I mean, one loss in what was an undefeated Filoil campaign does not take away from more of the wins and the good sides. And like I said, if they make a few more extra free throws, they probably put themselves in a better position to win this game. But it seemed that way early on, that the roles were set. I still feel like they're the deepest team in the UAAP, top to bottom, when everyone gets going. And it felt like they started to build that upper hand against UP, not just for now, but moving forward. And then the third quarter came along, and you saw how UP, classic Coach Golden Monteverde adjustments, classic UP coaching staff adjustments, they changed the flow of the game, they changed the pace of the game, they changed the energy of the game. How? Their pickup point, guarding the ball handlers of DLSU, higher. They forced Pablo and Amos to come out and defend in the perimeter more. They moved the ball quicker when they could, when Phillips came out to trap in pick and roll situations. Physicality, UP. That's why UP also got into foul trouble and kept sending DLSU to the free throw line to some degree, because they were playing extra physical. But it worked. They know. UP knows, having faced DLSU quite a number of times now in the last 2 years, that one of the areas DLSU needs to improve on is their free throw shooting. So if they have to foul, if they have to be extra physical to avoid LaSalle getting easy layup opportunities, then that's what they're gonna do, because last few games it's worked, dating back to the last UAP finals again and again now in the Filoil semifinals. You also saw UP share the ball better in the second half. They were getting Gianni involved. They were trying to be more imposing on the inside. They were crashing the glass more, and they were winning the hustle plays more, the 50-50 balls, the possession battle. When you're going up against a team that is basically almost your equal, and I think in terms of talent and potential, DLSU and UP are quite neck and neck. It's been the case now for 2 years. Winning the possession battle, winning those hustle plays could determine who wins the game, because you give yourself more chances to come out victorious. And that's what UP did. They were clutch down the stretch. And I think this has kind of been the case now, dating back to season 84, even dating back to really 2018 when this UP Final Four run started, where UP is at their best when their backs are against the wall. You notice that now? How when it seems like people think they're down for the count, or they're counting them out, or maybe someone else might be better than them, they find that extra gear, that extra energy when they're overlooked, or when people might be underrating them, and they show what they're capable of. Their backs against the wall, everything on the line, compared to when they come in as the favorites, or when they come in as the team that everyone just expects is going to win immediately. Now, they'll still win a lot of games in the elimination round. They'll beat a lot of the other teams. But usually in these big games, Ateneo in 84 and 85, LaSalle in 86, LaSalle in 86 and 87, yes, and now in Filoil. When UP comes in, kind of like the team trying to rally from behind, or the team with their backs against the walls, that's when they perform better, at least comparative to when they come in as the quote-unquote favorites, or the team that everyone just expects to win immediately. Case in point, 84, Ateneo was the favorite. UP was the underdog. UP won the championship. It was a magical run. It was a magical championship. Season 85. Now, we can debate forever what would have happened if Xavier Lucero never got injured, but it is what it is. It happened. Ateneo was the underdog in that series. I know that that was a huge talking point, because Ateneo was the one seed. But truth be told, from a talent perspective and overall perspective, I felt that UP was the better team heading into that series, but Ateneo beat them. And then again in season 86, LaSalle was the underdog in that finals. UP was a team considered to be more talented, loaded, veteran squad. LaSalle won. And then in 87 naman, LaSalle won the two elimination round games against UP. And with KQ, the best player in the league, the assumption was LaSalle was going to win that series too. But then UP, kind of under the radar, slowly by slowly, chipping their way to control of that series and won the championship, which went down the wire, to be fair. But I felt that when you look at the body of work from games 1 to game 3, games 1 to 3 of season 97, UP overall played better. So just something to watch out for, especially with this team. Now, I still think there are areas UP needs to work on, like who's going to be their go-to guy. Is it Alarcon? Is it Abadiano? Is it Remagat after today's game? Is it going to be a closer by committee kind of thing, depending on who has the hot hand? Because it seemed that way the last few years, but with the floor general like JD Kagulangan, by the way, read the profile we did on him on All-Star Magazine. With JD Kagulangan there, at least you knew you had the floor general, the court general to control the ball, to control the offense, to keep things steady. And I still feel like that's an area UP will have to work on, especially as we get to the UAP and they face other teams like your UST, your Ateneo, your FEU, your NU in the Filoil finals. That's going to low-key be a very interesting game. I am very curious to see how that plays out. But this was a very encouraging performance for UP. You have to give them props. At one point, it felt like they were overpowered and outmatched, and they flipped the script. And that's what they do best. They can flip the script by changing the way they play, the physicality aspect of it, the tempo of the game, the energy of the game. And once that crowd gets into it, that crowd just does something to them and gives them that extra energy. And that was a big difference in this game compared to the last Filoil game against DLSU a few weeks ago, where I felt like the crowd, even from watching it on YouTube, was more into it for UP in this game compared to last time. And for DLSU, learning lessons. It's obviously disappointing for them to not win Filoil, particularly when the sponsors of the big companies of the tournament are associated with DLSU. They haven't won Filoil in a while, actually. A long, long time. But I digress. It's still been an impressive offseason for them. However, this game does prove that they still have areas they need to improve on. They need to work on. They need to work on consistency. They haven't blown a lot of leads. They did blow leads against Ateneo and UP, but the way basketball is played nowadays, almost inevitable sometimes that you're gonna blow leads with the way swing plays happen, the 3-point shot, how that just changes the tempo of the game and the way scoring can be done so easily and how it bends the defense. Big leads aren't as safe as they used to be anymore. So that's something to consider. But at the same time, too, if you're LaSalle and you have the chance to put a big rival down for the kill, especially in a big game where the finals is on the line, you have to be able to do it. Particularly when you go to the free throw line 43 times. When you go to the free throw line 43 times and you only make 22, it's a recipe for disaster. And some people, a lot of my friends who I knew from college at DLSU, alumni, they have just been resigned to the fact that LaSalle teams are never going to be good at free throws. They just feel like this free throw curse has been put on the Green Archers, and it's something that's just going to be an issue for the rest of their lives. But it can still rear its ugly head in ways that are damning and also very frustrating. And that was exactly what happened today. And I'm not just saying that free throws were the sole reason that LaSalle lost or, UP got lucky because LaSalle missed free throws. That's not the case. UP won the game because one, they refused to give in after halftime. Two, the coaching staff gave them a game plan to change the tempo of the game and kind of rattle LaSalle. This was really the first time I saw this LaSalle team rattled in the offseason. And three, because Remagat was willing to look past the challenges and the difficulties he faced beforehand and then make the big shots when it counted most. But could LaSalle have given itself a better chance to win this game had they made a few extra free throws? Like I said, absolutely. I think that's a fact. Learning lessons. Now, the good news is that we're not going to have to wait long to see LaSalle and UP potentially face each other again because both teams will be representing the Philippines in the World University Basketball Series in Japan in August. August is shaping up to be a very busy basketball month. John Morant is coming, August 2, WUBS, FIBA Asia, Saudi Arabia, and you got possibly two more NBA players coming to the Philippines in the end of August. I'll just leave it at that. And then September, the UAP starts. It looks like either September 20 or 21. So that's going to be exciting to look forward to. But yeah, the WUBS, I think LaSalle and UP I saw are bracketed in different groups. So if they face each other, it would have to be in the finals. But it wouldn't surprise me if they did face each other in the finals. And just imagine that kind of matchup in Japan. It's not gonna have the crowd, the energy that even in Filoil you'd see, but it's still gonna be very telling of where these two teams are. If you're UP though, you gotta be happy with the way you came back because you showed that UP fight energy that was kind of lacking in the last two games against Adamson and CSB. To be fair, UP won those games, but it was not the convincing UP fashion that we've grown accustomed to. Again, like I said, playing as the favorite compared to playing as, with your backs against the wall. And then today, Sunday, with their backs against the wall, against a rival, they got the job done. You have to give them props. And I'm very excited to see how they perform against NU because NU, as we get to our next topic on this podcast, is a team that is going to turn some heads again. When I did my preseason power rankings with Nico Rocha in the last episode for accountability purposes, I had NUS 5 next to UST and Ateneo. Ateneo and UST in that order. But I did say it wouldn't surprise me if NU makes the final four. I just wanted to see what the FSA situation is going to look like. It looks like it's going to be Omar John now with Collins going to UST and Mo Diasana, from what I heard, not exactly ready to get back on the court yet. The key for NU in that game against UST was the performance of Jake Figueroa. I think Jake Figueroa has the potential to be the best two-way wingman in college basketball. And by wingman, I mean the 3-4 position at the forward, because he has a reliable outside shot. He can hit floaters. He can drive to the rim. He's strong. He's big-bodied. He's lengthy. He's fast. Long wingspan. 5 steals today, by the way. 5 assists, 5 rebounds, 5 steals. I'll have to double check that. I know he had 5 steals and 5 rebounds and 24 points on 10 of 17 shooting from the field. Coach Jeff's system, the way NU plays, does not exactly unleash individual players to do their thing. It's more team oriented, especially when you got two bruisers like Palacielo and Padrones in the paint who can get you easy buckets when you need them. This was the most impressed I've been of NU probably since that semis matchup they had against LaSalle in Asia Basket, because they were trailing by 14. Gosh, I remember I saw UST go by 14 early moments of the third period. I decided to order a cheeseburger, get some room service, enjoy my time here, check the game again. Oh, what? They're up by 8? They do look more composed with Steve Nash Enriquez on the court. And it's his fifth and final season with NU. So I expect him to really take on that leadership mantle at the point guard spot. Yumamo and Garcia are talented, but they're not ready to lead teams yet. At this point, Steve Nash is, at least this team, because he's been with this system for a while now. And like I said, that combo of Palacielo and Padrones, at least from a banging in the post perspective, that they are the best. They are probably the two best power forwards in the league in college basketball, at least in the UAP, in terms of scoring just in the low block. And they're in the same team. So one of them will always be in the court. Sometimes both of them will be in the court at the same time. And you got Omar John there. Not the greatest FSA, but he's productive. At least you know that he's not going to hurt your team when he's on the court. And then if you get guys like Manansala and Figueroa to step up and do this, provide scoring, provide explosiveness, particularly when their team is down, then that could come in very essential, because that's been the issue with NU for years, right? They're great defensively, but the offense can stall down. The shooting can be problematic sometimes. That's why you need a guy like Paul Francisco to come in, give you some outside shots, sparks maybe. But that combo of Figueroa and Manansala in particular, I think if NU wants to get where they've been trying to get to for so many years now, which is the finals, they have to take that extra step, that extra leap. More Figueroa than Manansala, because I think Figueroa's potential is higher. Yes, star potential written all over him, to be honest. So we'll see. I'm very curious to see how they perform against UP, because over the last few years we've seen that they've played UP tight in certain situations, but when it gets to the end game, UP tends to have a bit of a mental advantage over them. So if they can, like the elimination round of this Filoil, like, and you cut the lead, I think, to 2 or 1 at one point, and Abadiano closed it out for UP. So if NU can give them a challenge, that would be a great momentum builder heading into the UAAP. Let's see what this upcoming China trip does for them as well. And if you're UP, the chance to go to repeat in Filoil, I don't think it's ever been done before. History in the making, potentially. So it might not have the theatrics and the fireworks of UP versus LaSalle or even UP versus Ateneo, but don't sleep on UP versus NU as a low-key rivalry, because those who've been following college basketball know that that's always a matchup that's worth checking out. All right, now UST, I have to say, I'm very disappointed. Very disappointed. This was the game they should have won. Now, to be fair, I think ultimately Osang is not going to be the FSA. It's going to be a Kowe. And we're not really going to know how good UST is until we see Collins play for them, which is probably going to be in the UAP, like I said in the last episode. But I felt like this was a game they should have won. Chrysostomo was amazing in the first half. 19 points, 7 of 7 shooting, couple of rebounds, shooting outside shots, defending. That allowed Nick to get into the paint. That allowed the other guys to do their thing, contribute here and there. But with UST, they play to their competition. That's just the thing about them. They when they face a LaSalle or a UP, even if they might not beat these teams, they're gonna surprise you with how well they play, and that's gonna make you think, "Oh wow, UST, we shouldn't sleep on these guys. They're giving LaSalle and UP a legit challenge." But then there are also times they face, like for example, when they faced NU last season, when NU did not have an FSA, and NU rallied to beat them in the fourth quarter. I think that game was at MOA Arena. You're like, why did they lose that? Or I think they also had. Did they have a loss to Adamson? I think they had a loss to Adamson also. And from a talent perspective, last season they're more talented than Adamson. They lost to FEU as well in the Filoil this year. And again, this was a game against NU in the semis. They should have won. They had the lead. They had the momentum. Then once NU took advantage of the game, they look lost. And that's the thing about UST. When things are going great, it looks great. They look like a title contender, legit. But when things start to unravel a little bit, they kind of get lost. And is can we chalk that up to maybe experience because it was only last year that they returned to the final four? Maybe to some degree, but not completely. And these are the moments you want to see what the veteran players and the leaders are going to do. Forsky, I think, is now 2 out of 18 in his last two games in Filoil. And the shooting has been problematic. He's below 30%. He's almost close to 20%. And the truth of the matter is, if Forsky does not improve the outside shooting or his field goal shooting, UST is not going to get far because they need him on the court. He's their best playmaker. He's their best setup man. He's the best floor general they have. But if he's not going to make shots, teams are going to just tell him, okay, shoot. Now, he's taking a lot of outside shots, 3-point shots. I want to see maybe get into the paint more, trust that floater a little bit more. He was using that floater a lot when he was in Ateneo. I was surprised he didn't go with that floater more his first season with UST. Maybe that can help him. Maybe it could even get him to the free throw line a little more for easy buckets. But unless Fortsky gets that shooting efficiency up there again, and law of averages say that he should eventually get up there because he struggled for a while now, that limits UST in my opinion. And also, I want to see Nick have more of that takeover attitude when things are going wrong. Now, I don't know what the coaches are telling the players. I don't know what the system is supposed to be oriented to. Maybe the players are just following instructions. And if they do, if that's what they're doing, that's what they're supposed to do because that's what their coaches are telling them to do. But in moments like earlier where NU has erased a double digit lead and a finals berth is on the line and you have the chance to put your team on the map, I would have wanted Nick to take over more and close that game out for UST. Now, I think he has the potential to do it. I really do. I think Nick is talented enough and good enough and has the desire to be that player. All that's lacking now is to see him do it in a big stage. And he's going to get a lot of chances to do it this season, his final season. Last season was almost like gravy for him in UST because they've been struggling so long, so long, so long to get back to the Final Four. Their first Final Four appearance in 2019 before the pandemic. But now that they're back in the Final Four, the expectations are higher. And Nick is playing his final year of college ball. I know he has a desire, a hope to maybe try and play in Asia. Like JD Kagulangan told me in our shoot for All Star, that's what all players are training for now. They're not just thinking local, they're thinking, how can I get to international? And scouts have looked at Nick. I can confirm that. So this season's going to be big for him in terms of, okay, how does he perform on the court and where does he go? And we know he can put up stats, we know he can score, but what is the final piece is can you be the vet leader to get your team to that winning side and not just winning games but getting to the finals, competing against the very best, going mano a mano against championship contenders. A few weeks ago he did it, to be fair, in that game against UP that UST won. I felt his fourth quarter performance where he closed out UP was essential, and that made me think, oh, Nick is flipping the script. But then today, I would have wanted to see him do it a little more. He did not. That's fine. It's Filoil. It's not the UAAP. But come the UAAP, I still think he's the biggest closer of this team, and it's going to be on his shoulders because he has a very good squad with him. He has shooters. He has long, lengthy wing players to help him out. He's gonna have a big man in a Kowet to help him out too. So the pieces are there, and I think he is UST's best player. And if I had to wager whether or not I think Nick is ready for that responsibility, I'm leaning towards yes. That's where I am. But overall, today, not great from UST. Would have liked to see better. Let's see how they do in the UAP. Props to any though; they deserve all the credit. Props to UP as well. This all goes back to the drawing board. Watch the film, see what went wrong. That's the beauty of Filoil and this off-season tournaments. It's competitive and you want to win, and there are notes you can take off to wonder if it's gonna follow through come the UAP. But it's not the ultimate goal, and we get to see an early preview of what's to expect, what to improve on for the teams, what they should keep as their strengths. I'm happy that the Asia Basket's gonna have a tournament in July. Also, that's more basketball this month. CSB's competing, Adamson's competing. I'm excited to see how Kobe De Mesana plays for Adamson. I believe that who else is playing? I'll have to double check, but I know CSB is playing and Letron's playing as well, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see. Yeah, and you might be playing. A lot of exciting things to come. One last note before I go, because I should get some sleep. You guys might be noticing the suitcase below my eyes. The referees today were. I stopped myself there. The referees today in that UP LaSalle game left much to be desired. Let's just put it that way. I know refereeing is not an easy job. It's probably one of the most difficult jobs in the world, one of the most thankless jobs in the world. And they're all human beings. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to make the right calls all the time. It's part of the game. You have to accept it. But you need to have control of the game. And by the way, I'm not saying the refs were bad for one team and good for one team in this UP LaSalle game. I thought that the refs made mistakes that hurt both teams. Both teams were impacted positively, but also mostly negatively by some of the calls. But more than the wrong calls or the timing of the calls, it was the control of the game. When you're watching a game, whether as a spectator or whether you're playing in the game or you're coaching in the game, you want at least the flow of the game to be consistent and decent, and it doesn't feel like the refs are trying to figure out what they're supposed to do on the spot. You want to feel like the referees know what they're doing when they're making calls, because it can really affect game plans. It really can. I know that Coach Topex has received a lot of criticism for complaining to the refs over the years since he's been with LaSalle, maybe even dating back to the NCAA. But I understood some of his frustrations today. I understood the frustrations from the UP side of things when they got a technical foul too, because when it's confusing and you're watching the refs kind of like, flip flop between what they want to do and what they shouldn't do, and they make one call here but don't call it the same way in the other end, and then they try to make those Bowie calls later on. It just gets frustrating from a fan perspective, from a player perspective. So it's part of the game. And to be fair, overall, I still think the refs have done more good than bad for this Filoil tournament. But I think today in particular needed improvement. And you can even make a case that the refs in the San Miguel TNT game of game one of the finals, that Motao Tua shot at the end, uh, that I think that's going to be quite controversial as well. And if you don't believe me, you should just see the reactions of the management and players from both teams after the buzzer, because I think that's going to be in the storylines for the next few days. Okay, admittedly not the greatest podcast episode, but you guys got to see a new background, and I just wanted to make sure I got this out to remain consistent. Just want to thank everyone who's been following the podcast, those who have been commenting, liking, leaving reviews on Spotify. Really appreciate it. Helps a long way. And I hope you guys like this episode. Let me know what you liked or maybe did not like. And catch us for our next episode on Wednesday this week. And we'll have one on Friday as well, and more to come. Thanks, everybody. Peace. God bless.